Thank you so much for attending this meeting, this event, which is dedicated to the community of SMEs. We know that the EU is looking forward to a simplification process for large companies. In the omnibus proposals, which have been tabled by the Commission on February 26, there is a direction of travel that has been established by the Commission. In these proposals and in the explanatory memorandum that is explaining the initiative, there is a clear reference to VSME. And indeed, we've been asked by the Commission to deliver our technical advice on a voluntary standard for SMEs just before Christmas, which we did. In that context, also in a specific pilot project that we have received from the European institutions at the initiative of the Parliament, there is a key sub-project which is stimulating the SME ecosystem. So in that context, this meeting is very important because we believe that the VSME standard that we have prepared for the Commission to consider is a way to avoid burdening SMEs and with uncoordinated questionnaires. And we also believe that it's an opportunity for SMEs to focus on the few challenges they may be confronted with in terms of sustainability matters and sustainable development. So we tend to establish, our goal was to establish a basis where through an agreed upon platform of data, it's very simple, as it will be explained, and as you already know probably, through a simplified set of indicators to have a common platform that everybody would accept as the basis for communications between SMEs and their counterparts, be they financial institutions or companies in the value chain. So thank you very much for being here. And without further ado, I would like to hand over to the team. Chiara, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Patrick, for kicking us off. And I have a very nice room full of interesting colleagues and people here in Brussels. So it's a pleasure to be here physically and also remotely, of course. Let me introduce the speakers from the European Commission who will give us their perspective and expectations for the role and state of play of this standard. So we first have DG FISMA with Sven Gentner, the head of unit, and then we will have DG GROW with Ulla Hudina, deputy head of unit C1. Shall I hand over to you, Sven? I see you ready.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chiara, and hello. Good morning to everyone. Also, a few words from our side, from DG FISMA side, in relation to the SMEs activities and the VSME standard. But before I go into what we're planning to do with the standard, maybe just to take one step back in terms of SME reporting in general and how we see this under the sustainability framework. You do recall that actually under the CSRD, it was not foreseen to have a standard for SMEs. This was a long discussion actually at the time when the CSRD was negotiated. There was the one side of the argument that said, well, we don't want the SMEs to be in because we don't want them to be burdened with a standard. And then there was the other side of the argument that said that, well, SMEs do want to report on sustainability and will be asked to report on sustainability anyway, be it in the value chain or from investors or through banks. And as I said, in the end, the agreement was not to establish a standard for SMEs, but then I think it became clear relatively quickly that indeed SMEs are faced with requests for reporting. And indeed, I think many SMEs also want to report because they've got a story to tell, and it can actually be a competitive advantage to present yourself also in relation to sustainability. So this is why we then, together with the EFRAG, decided that we should establish a voluntary standard. Patrick has already mentioned it, the VSME standard, which was given to us last December. We're very happy about this because we think it can really serve the purpose that we wanted to do, which is be the one common standard in the market that replaces a whole host of questionnaires and different requests that come to SMEs. We're happy that EFRAG was able to really include SMEs on the one hand, but also the users on the information on the other hand, because given that it's a voluntary standard, there needs to be acceptance both from the ones that report and the ones that use the information. And that's really our goal, that we make this the common basis for reporting. So what we want to do now is two steps. The first one is that we want to endorse the SME standard, the VSME, that has been given to us by EFRAG through a recommendation. We want to do that as quickly as possible. I think we might still be able to do this in June of this year, because as I said, we think giving this an additional push will hopefully help convince everyone that this can be the common basis of reporting and will facilitate the life also of SMEs. But then, of course, there has to be a second step. And oh, wait, I shouldn't forget that we're also planning, of course, to translate then the VSME standard in all the official languages, which I think would be also very helpful for the companies that use it. But then, of course, there has to be a second step because we made the proposal, the omnibus proposal, end of February, 26th of February, where in a sense the SME would take on additional roles, the SME standard. First of all, you've seen that we established a more formal value chain cap, which would be based on the VSME. So in a sense, that cap of what SMEs can be asked by companies down the value chain. And then second of all, of course, also we would move the threshold. So there would be more companies below the threshold for binding reporting. And also these companies would then be offered a voluntary standard to report under the VSME. So this second step we can only really take once the negotiations of the omnibus proposal have been finalized or are very close to an end and where we know where we're going to land. Because of course it depends on, will this value chain cap still change in the negotiations? I don't know, it's early days. We've only had a few meetings in the council. And also, will the threshold probably still change? I'm not so sure, but anyway, the discussions are ongoing and we will have to see first what the result will be. So once we know where we're going to end up, as I said, our intention is to base ourselves on the VSME. We'll look at whether there is a need to adapt them, whether there's a need for further changes. If not, then we would go through the usual process that we employ when we adopt a delegated act. That means we involve member states, we involve the European agencies. We consult once more in a short consultation, and then we would establish this formal VSME that would be then the value chain cap, and also the voluntary standard below the threshold through a delegated act, so that it's really very clear what the basis would be. I think this is all what I would say now in terms of process. And once more, two-step process. First, a recommendation already this year, and then a delegated act, I would think, at some point next year, establishing this more formally and also with additional roles. But in addition to that, of course, we're very happy to see that the work continues to build this SME ecosystem, because we think that in any case plays a very important role. We need support for SMEs. We need online tools. I think also EFRAG's analysis showed that the benefits increase a lot when online reporting, when digital tools are available to SMEs, and we are very much supporting all of these efforts. We're happy that EFRAG does it, and of course we're also still supporting the TSI, which supports these initiatives at member state level. You remember that last year we organized 2 events here in Brussels. We're looking again at organizing something maybe later this year. And once more, we're very happy that this work continues. So I'll stop here, and thanks once more for the invitation.
Thanks a
Hello.
lot, Sven.
I will take it over from Sven. Ulla Hudina from DG Grow. I have a very unstable connection, so I hope this will hold for a couple of minutes. As explained by Sven, he took us a step back, but I would also like to take you 2 steps back. We are here after EFRAG's advice on VSME from last December. Then obviously we are here after the first omnibus package by the Commission on 26th of February. And we are also here gathered today after Sustainable Finance Platform finished its mandate end of March, basically last week. And it published its final report, including one on a streamlined approach to SMEs access to sustainable finance. And these 3 main developments from this year actually are a continuation of the efforts that we've started already 2 years ago. So I'm taking you now 2 years ago, 2 steps back, because already in the SME relief package of September 2023, we clearly acknowledged, clearly wrote and took some commitments from the Commission side that SMEs do play a key role in helping Europe achieve its climate neutrality goals and other environmental goals. So this is a fact. And SMEs therefore need a simple and standardized framework to report on ESG issues. And already at that time, we very much acknowledged the so-called trickle-down effect, so that we acknowledge what was happening to SMEs at that time, and it's happening now, namely that there is these different types of questionnaires, actually a proliferation of them, that SMEs receive from both their financial partners, meaning banks, and notably through their value chain partners. And this is why we are addressing it. It has been a fact, and we've been working on it on different work streams. And this is why already with the SME relief package, we took those 2 main commitments or 2 main actions on board, that we would be providing a voluntary standard for the non-listed SMEs, meaning what now Sven was explaining you, the road, the direction of travel we are having on the VSME post-EFRAG's proposal, advice on VSME, and also as it is being now suggested to be amended as a part of the first omnibus proposal, meaning when it comes to amendments to the CSRD. And as clearly stressed by Sven, and the next steps that the Commission is to take, first as a recommendation and later as a delegated act, this is very crucial when it comes to the development of the voluntary SME standard, and notably when it comes to its uptake as a value chain cap. This is then crucial for the success of the future of sustainability reporting in Europe when it comes to SMEs. So this is the first commitment that we've been actually trying to realize since the SME relief package. Whereas my role here now in this next 2 minutes is to also stress that we've been trying to work towards the making it to realize our second commitment from the SME relief package, namely to improve access to green or now more transition finance for SMEs. This is more the financing part, the access that SMEs have to this type of finance from banks. And do you hear me? Well, I hope you can hear me because my connection is really not stable.
Yes.
So you can, thank you. And this is why the platform's report from last week does suggest, also advise us, like EFRAG did on the VSME, the platform from last week report does advise us on how to take forward this voluntary streamlined framework for SMEs, notably when it comes to the access to finance from what the banks are lending to them. and we will take their advice forward. And it's also important to stress that their advice is actually building upon something that we've been already doing, a certain carrot that we've been offering to SMEs and banks across Europe, namely the so-called InvestEU program. Underneath, we had a specific so-called sub-program, if I can say it, for SMEs. And under this sub-program, sub-window, we've created a new sustainability guarantee. It has not been an easy uptake, but now, after 2 years, this InvestEU sustainability guarantee, it's there, it's on the market, it's running. So its key implementation characteristics that are only taxonomy inspired, they're not taxonomy aligned, they're not that complex, are actually embedded also in the platforms report from last week. And this is why we will now reflect on the platform's proposals. We will try to link it with omnibus proposal negotiations, like Sven was explaining to you, to make it first as a recommendation. And we are linking all these processes together also with our commitments from the SME relief package. So ideally, this would be aligned, would be mutually complementary. And what is our common goal? EFRAG colleagues, thank you very much, Sven in DG VSME and us in DG Grow, is this, that all this is voluntary, and this is why it's even more important that it would be accepted by SMEs, key partners, namely the financial sector, meaning the financial partners that the SMEs have, and also by the value chain partners that the SMEs have. Because the moment something is voluntary, there we have to ensure the uptake, and we have to engage. And this is why it's so important that we are engaging with you in the EFRAG forum, EFRAG SME forum activities like you're having now. Because as I said, the moment something is voluntary, there has to be an acceptance. There has to be perceived value added on this on the market by SMEs as well as by their partners. So with this short introduction, and actually I wanted to make a link between what you're doing and what are still upcoming steps by the Commission. I think that engaging together, having this as a regular stake taking events, I think
Well, Ula? Okay, well, I think we were able to...
Now you lost me.
Yeah, I've lost
so
your...
I finish...
Yes, no, if you can just repeat the last 1 minute
The last
or so.
The last sentence was that I hope that with these all work streams that are now being put into the same direction, that the standard, the VSME standard, would be workable, implementable in the market by both SMEs and their partners, meaning banks and financial partners and the value chain partners. And from the Commission side, we will continue to engage with you to accept this on the market. Thank you very much for organizing this event.
Thanks a lot, Ula, also for allowing us to broaden a bit the perspective and connect the dots of the various initiatives that the Commission and the platform and EFRAG are pursuing at the same time, and put them in a systemic way in perspective. I would then maybe move to the next step for this presentation, which is to introduce you to the content of the standard itself. And of course, this is an occasion to present its content too broadly in the context of a public event. So we will lead you through the process that EFRAG followed to develop the standard and to the key features of the content, a bit of for those that still didn't have the time to get familiar with the standard itself. So moving to I will do the introduction and then I will hand over to Elisa Bevilacqua, who is leading the VSME work here at EFRAG, but also to our other members of the team to present some of the contents. So moving to the first slide of the presentation, I don't know who is moving the slides. I don't know if you had already connected the two slides, otherwise we take now a couple of minutes to do that, so that this meeting can be even more interactive, and both online and in the room you have the possibility to raise questions and to respond to these polling questions. This is a way to involve as many as possible in the conversation. So please, online you can join at slido.com and the number you see on the screen, and here in the room I see people connecting also with the QR code. So give you a bit of time. Okay, so you can start already answering to our first polling question for you. Rate how familiar you are with the VSME standard. And this question will also help us to be sure that we cover sufficient details to also take on board those that are less familiar. So more than 1/3 are somewhat familiar. 1/4 is beginner. I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar. 1/4 is comfortable. 11% is an expert. So we also, well, of course, I see very familiar faces around the table here. Okay, no, good to know. So I think that there is a minority with a very good knowledge, many somewhat familiar, and so it will. I think it will be beneficial if we take the time to go through the slide to know it better. Thanks. So as Ulla was saying, this started as part of the European Commission SME relief package in September 2023. And the objective was to have a simple and standardized framework for SMEs to report, to create better opportunities to obtain green financing and facilitate the transition to a sustainable economy. One of the key elements here is to enable SMEs to have a unified set of information in order to reduce the effort of having to deal with several uncoordinated different questionnaires. And being these are non-legally binding instruments outside the scope of the legal obligations of the CSRD, it was essential actually for us to start in the market with an understanding of the market needs in approaching this delicate task. And that's where with interaction with the colleagues in the banking community, we understood that we had to go broader than only the SMEs to also try to take on board the micro entities. And this added to the challenges, of course, because we had to deal with the same instrument with companies with less than 10 employees up to 249. So quite a diversified population. One of the key issues was proportionality. I think we heard very clearly and loudly the message from the SME representatives saying don't streamline the standards that you have defined for the large, because that will not help. So one of the elements that marked the success of VSME so far, we can say it's a success on the basis of at least the participation that we had in our consultation and all the events that we are having, the number of translation and the number of tools that we see around, was to say, I mean, one of the key factors of this success is the fact that we started from a white sheet of paper and we developed something for SMEs specifically. We including with an effort to have a simplified language. In terms of approach to the preparation, we had to ensure conceptually consistency with the glossary, definitions, key topics, metrics covered in ESRS set 1 and also in LSME at that time. For obvious reasons, the trickle-down effects comes from the fact that companies need data. These data are needed primarily to manage sustainability aspects and then also to report on them. So while we made an effort to simplify the language and have something that was approachable for companies with less resources, at the same time we tried to maintain the conceptual coherence so that the results resonate also with what the banks and large undertakings will look at. What we did was to scan the horizon to collect as many real examples of questionnaires, and we are very grateful for the organizations that accepted to share their questionnaires with us. And that was more than 2 years ago, when really all were discussing and sitting around the table to define the questionnaires. And so we could benefit from these 12 questionnaires, many of them at the Banking Federation or even National Banking System, which allowed us to cover 26,000 SMEs, 700 banks, and 450 corporates. So I think we did the best that we could to collect all the questionnaires. And we started our work and analysis to see what were the common denominators of all those standards. And an obvious element that came to our attention was the role that the SFDR principal adverse indicators were playing, in particular the ones mandatory, the ones in Table 1. We know that in the meanwhile, collectively, we all have matured an understanding of which PAI are not working well, so we are fully aware of the fact that there is margin of improvement. But nevertheless, the advantage of those principal adverse indicators is that they are used in practice and they already created a common data infrastructure to which all we are referring. So what we did is to test in the public consultation the assumption that those PAI, despite the fact, the ones in Table 1, despite the fact that they were originated and designed for investors, they could be a good basis also for other counterparts. And we tested this assumption positively during the public consultation. Next slide. This is a bit a description of our due process. We created our SME communities, which was active with written input, questionnaires, and workshops. We conducted outreaches and workshops with SMEs, associations, and users, and we ran a benchmarking of all the possible questionnaires and other similar initiatives similar to our initiative. All of that allowed us a couple of years ago to start developing the prototype of VSME in discussions with the TAG and the board. And all our discussions, as you know, are public, so are documented and have been taking place in the public. This allowed us to, in January 2024, issue our exposure draft accompanied by the basis for conclusions, and we had 4 months of public consultation with more than 300 participants to the survey online, 164 participants to the field test, and also 22 comment letters. Particularly important for the field test is to note that we had the privilege to have on board few platforms toward and through those platforms, our VSME already in 2024 has been used and tested by thousands of SMEs via those platforms. So we really could have a good input centralized via the 164 responses. We had another round of public discussions in the TAG and in the board. We had, and this allowed us to identify a number of changes to the exposure draft to take into consideration the outcome of the public consultation. We further tested with the users the directions we were taking in these changes with few workshops and also with the SME representatives. And this led us to the approval of VSME in November 2024 at the board level. And on the 17th of December, we issued the package of VSME and basis for conclusions. And we also issued the educational video the same day or the day after. All of this was accompanied by a cost-benefit analysis corroborating the appropriateness of the type of work that we conducted. Next slide. One of the key features that seem to be working rather satisfactorily or well in the standard is its modularity. I mentioned the challenge of having a very diversified group of applicants here, users of this standard. So initially we started with 3 modules, the basic module, the P80 narrative module, and the business partners module. But during the public consultation, it came evident the fact that not all the companies were mature for a full narrative module. Therefore, we embedded the narrative content in a semi-narrative form, partially in the basic module and partially in the comprehensive module, reflecting more proportionate way to produce the narrative information. And then we renamed the business partners module in comprehensive module, because at the end of the day, also the basic include information that are needed for business partners. So we land at the end with 2 modules. The basic module is the target for non-listed SMEs with 11 disclosures and simplified language. But basic is also needed when you comply with the comprehensive module. The comprehensive adds other 9 disclosures and is dedicated or built on the basis of requests from the business partners, in particular Table 1 of the SFDR PAI, Pillar 3 disclosures of the banks, and climate and banking regulation. The basic module is a prerequisite, as I was saying, to apply the comprehensive module. One important element is that there is no materiality analysis. There is no request to report on material impacts, risks, and opportunities, or to identify which are the material matters. The list of material matters, the list of matters in ESRS is still present as an appendix, as a reference, always to encourage consistency with the language and the concepts of the standards for the large companies, but not being a standard built for fair presentation, but built more as a replacement for the questionnaire. So a set of mandatory, if you want, data points with as much as possible the use of this concept if applicable. So if you are in certain conditions, then you have to consider also this specific point, but with reduced use of judgment when determining what to report. We lengthily discussed the opportunity of having a placeholder for the future simplified taxonomy, and Ulla mentioned the importance of the work that the platform is doing to develop a simplified tool for taxonomy for SMEs. The original intention was to include a placeholder in VSME so that companies that were using VSME would be made aware and also could link to the tool and possibly expand. We were thinking about a third module comprising this aspect of sustainable lending, but then the timing was not ideal. So when we had to issue VSME, the platform was still working. Now the work is progressing, so the situation is changing. So that's why you don't find a mention in VSME about this important aspect. Next slide. This is an overview of the disclosures in the basic module. So we have 11 information. One is the basis for preparation. The second is on practices, policies, and future initiative for transition toward a more sustainable economy. A very important disclosure, this one, in a semi-narrative way, so more yes or no, and then expanded in the comprehensive module with more details. Energy and greenhouse gas emissions. We know how difficult reporting on these elements is. Here the effort has been to make it possible to report with the limited effort, and we will tell you more on what we are doing to stimulate the creation of tools, including through the TSI Commission funding, as Sven was mentioning, in order to allow that there are calculation tools available to support this disclosure. Then pollution of air, water, and soil for companies operating in sectors where this tends to be a more acute issue. Biodiversity, water resource use, circular economy and waste management, general characteristics of workforce, health and safety, remuneration, collective bargaining and training, and convictions and fines for corruption and bribery. So as you can see, few, only 11, but covering all the spectrum. So environment, social, and also governance. Next slide, you see the comprehensive module, which adds a disclosure on strategy, business model, and sustainability. A description of practices, policies, and future initiative for transitioning toward a more sustainable economy. And this is the expansion of the disclosure B2 that we were seeing before. We have a tabular format here, and we are also working to provide more illustrations on what these initiatives could look like. Elisa will tell you more. Consideration when reporting on GHG emissions under B3. This is very important. It doesn't have a specific name or number because it needs to be reported in conjunction with the GHG emissions, when the company believes that it's important to also disclose on GHG emissions, in particular on scope 3. GHG reduction target and climate transition for the companies that have these in place, climate risk with few important information also for physical risk, additional characteristics of the general workforce, additional information on human rights policies and processes, severe human rights incidents, and revenues from certain sectors and exclusion from the EU reference benchmarking, and finally for governance, gender diversity ratio in the governance body. Over to you, Elisa, for a more detailed description.
Thanks, Chiara, and good morning, everyone. Maybe I would like to just go back to those two slides on the basic and comprehensive. We have not included in the package the detailed disclosure that you find in our videos, but I wanted to still zoom in a little bit on some of the disclosure, because it's important to understand some of the details of the disclosures. Also, in relation to the initial Slido reply, where most of the participants were somewhat familiar with VSME, but not really acquainted. So we think it can be useful to have a zoom in on some of the disclosure. In particular, on the basic module, I would like to remind you that for the B1, the basis of preparation, we have the opportunity to disclose on the basis of the basic or comprehensive module, but also to choose to disclose, to use the basic in combination with only some of the disclosure of the comprehensive module. This is the flexibility that we've included to lower the barrier for the SMEs who wanted to get familiar with a comprehensive module, or that may be requested by the business counterpart to report only on 2 or 3, for example, of the indicators in the comprehensive, but didn't want to but found it too complex to report on the full comprehensive module. Again, we come to the modularity and flexibility, which is pretty much connected to the VSME approach. We also have here the ID card of the SME with the disclosing of the legal form, the names, and so on. So the ID card, and also the fact of disclosing if the report is prepared on individual or consolidated basis. We keep in mind that it can be, the VSME can be used both for the bilateral exchange, but also, of course, and we encourage it for the publication of the report. But it can also remain bilateral, hence the importance also of the platform and the online repository function of the information. Chiara mentioned already the importance of the B2, which is here a yes or no, but we are talking about practices, policies, and future initiative. And if they exist, also the target to monitor the implementation of those policies. We have really simplified it through a table, and in the work of the VSME ecosystem, we will tell you about it in a minute. We are also adding some support guides for exactly this disclosure, which in combination with the C2, so the comprehensive expansion of this disclosure in the comprehensive model. For the B3, I would say the important thing to note here is that we are talking about scope 1 and scope 2, with the possibility of breaking down the renewable and non-renewable information if this is available. So here we are also trying to be concrete on the approach of what's achievable for the VSME. For the B4, it is applicable to undertaking that are already disclosing and reporting emission pollution according to legislation or voluntary schemes. And also for biodiversity, we have and if applicable, in the sense that, of course, it's applicable only to the SMEs that are close to biodiversity areas. The water, we have a mix of shell and, if applicable, for specifying that if involved in manufacturing process, for example, the consumption is needed. And then for B7 and B8 and B9, we have again a combination of thresholds and applicability conditions that are embedded in the standard. This helps and guides in replacement of the materiality analysis, the disclosure also including for certain sectors. Then for the comprehensive, let me just zoom in on the what I already mentioned. Okay, the strategy, of course, which also is complementing the basic module, and the C2, the description, and I already mentioned we are working on the guidance. Chiara already mentioned the approach to scope 3, so I will not go back to that. I will mention that for C3, the GHG reduction targets and climate transition, as well as we are also working on a support guide, so we'll tell you more in the next few minutes. And also the fact that this is devoted to SMEs operating in high climate impact sector, at least for the part of the transition plan. So again, here we have applicability that kicks in and that helps and guides the disclosure for certain sector. C4 as well is on environment, on the climate risk. And it has to be read also in combination with the basic module, the ID card information, where we have also the geolocation component, because geolocation, and we explain it, is used as a proxy for determining environmental risk, including high water stress, biodiversity area, and physical risk. But we also want the SME to become aware, so through the disclosure and not just passively. We have also the C6, C7, and C8, the social disclosure. Again, in particular for the C7, we are working on support guides, additional to what we have already today in VSME. And then I won't elaborate. C8, C9 are quite straightforward. So let's move on now, finishing this zoom in and deep dive into the content on the next part of the presentation, which is the VSME ecosystem. We mentioned in the beginning how important and how strong was the message from the public consultation and from the field test that we needed to accompany the VSME for a proper uptake and for market acceptance. We needed to accompany the VSME with online tools, with this platform that facilitate the reporting and so online templates with further guides, but also with the creation of an ecosystem that would really facilitate and continue the dialogue with the stakeholders as we had in the design and the drafting of the VSME standard. So for that reason, we have launched the VSME ecosystem in the beginning of the year. It's important to note here that, of course, the work on the VSME ecosystem, and this is the disclaimer you can read here, is based on a mandate that was well explained by Ulla, by the DG Commission, both FISMA and Growth at the beginning of the meeting. So the mandate to cater for the needs of the small micro enterprise in Europe. And this is really the sphere of work that we are still undertaking with the VSME ecosystem. So we have developed the standard for non-listed SMEs up to 250 and not tested, of course, for the larger, more complex one, as this may happen through the proposal of the omnibus. And this is an important clarification for when discussing both the guides, the material, and everything we are producing in the context of the VSME ecosystem. Coming back to the components of this VSME ecosystem, we have set up a forum which accompanies and basically complements the work of the VSME community already existing. The VSME community in the meantime has been relaunched and revitalized. We have up to 500 members, but Lorenzo will tell you more. The forum, the important function of the forum is really to create this forum of exchanges to exchange not only challenges, opportunity, but also the best practices, the material, the very concrete support measures that are taking place at European or national level by the user preparers. We are talking here about institutional stakeholders. Then we accompany this work as well with outreaches, events and training session. This is of course the one organized by EFRAG, but we are also planning to organize others in partnership with other stakeholders, and in particular the SME forum is also a multiplier, so we have a multiplier effect to the forum, so that we reach from, let's say, the European down to the regional level, the SMEs and the business counterparts in Europe. We are working through the help of the forum and the community as well on these support guides. I mentioned already the few disclosures that we're focusing in for this year, and of course other educational material. We are working on additional videos that will be published very shortly, and that should help as well to dig down and to focus really on each of the disclosure under the environmental, social, and the governance aspects. And then very important, the mapping of SMEs relating initiative with the tools, GHG calculators, very concretely, or geolocation tools, which are set to accompany with the VSME standard, and also those online platforms or national initiatives which are embedding or planning to embed the VSME standard. And finally, we will also launch a VSME acceptance progress survey, also with the help of the national standard setters, probably before the summer, or at least maybe we will wait after the EC recommendations for the VSME are finalized, so that we give the market a bit more time as well to take up the standard, and give this certainty that some of the stakeholders have flagged as needed, at least in the context of the VSME forum. That message came, so we were happy as well to have the confirmation by the Commission on this morning. But let me stop here and hand it over to my colleagues, who will give you more details on each of the deliverables.
Okay, thank you very much, Elisa. So going back to the SME forum and also on the VSME community, just to reiterate, the objective of the SME forum is primarily to have this multiplier effect, to really promote the VSME at national and regional level, through the stakeholders that are parts of the forum, and also at the same time facilitate exchanges between the forum members themselves. And then there is this third objective of the forum, which goes in tandem with the purpose of the community as well, which is to help EFRAG build the support guides and the various deliverables that we're preparing, and provide advice on the content that we're preparing. The forum is composed of 48 members. There's an equal distribution of preparers and users, including preparers, including accountants as proxy for preparers. There's 6 platforms and 16 observers, which include both the European Commission, as well as national members. And on the other side, we have the VSME community with 521 members, with a large number of preparers, and 69 users, a good number of NGOs and academics, a large number of consultants, and governmental institutions, and also a handful of non-EU members. The purpose, again, of this VSME community is also to provide advice on the content that we are preparing within the scope of the VSME ecosystem deliverables. And we have, and I will move later on to the second slide, but we have been doing surveys with the forum and the community together. On the SME forum, we have already had a first meeting on the 17th of February, and also a first initial preliminary survey on testing, say, the current evolution of the VSME from the perspective of the various members, and have now started working with both the community and the forum on the support guide. So to the next slide. Yes. In the meantime, as Elisa was also saying, we are preparing a set of events and training sessions. Today's event is an outreach event that falls within the scope of this deliverable. In December already, we released 3 educational videos on the VSME. The first one by Chiara del Prete with the highlights on the VSME and an introduction to it. The second one by Mattias Mingazzini on the basic module, and the third one by Elisa Bevilacqua on the comprehensive module and on the V ecosystem. As Elisa already stated, we're planning to release further deep dive educational videos that also focus on the guidance in the next weeks. And in terms of upcoming outreach events, we have planned one with the European Commission on the 29th of April, and one with the OECD on the 11th of June, with more details to come for both of them. Thank you. So going back to the support guides, with which we have been heavily involved with, heavily involving the community and the SME forum members, we are preparing 3 support guides at the moment. One on disclosure C2, so practices, policies, and future initiatives for transitioning towards a more sustainable economy. So this will be a guide providing examples in a drop-down menu on a future VSME online template, and we'll get back to this. To provide a set of examples of practices and policies and future initiatives for the SMEs to get inspired on, and to guide them to understand what they could potentially report on for practices that and policies that they may already have or that they may want to put in place. Secondly, there is we're preparing a support guide with examples of GHG reduction targets and climate transition. So this would be for disclosure C3. So this will serve for the preparers again to provide a guide on how to approach disclosure C3 more specifically, and how how to disclose it. And finally, on the social aspects, we're providing and developing a guide on disclosure C7. This will tackle examples of actions taken to address severe negative human rights incidents. And this will also serve to increase the support to the SMEs on this specific disclosure. Now, all of these 3 disclosures these support guides stem out of a request from the public consultation to provide more information on these matters. And we have already sent out to the SME forum and the VSME community a survey on disclosure C2, so the first support guide. And we are currently analyzing the results. And in the meantime, we have sent a second survey on disclosures C3 and C7, which are currently open for comments. Yes, so we'll be working on these in the upcoming months to along with digital support guides, on which I will now let Matthias give you more details.
Yes, thank you, Lorenzo. Thank you all for being here. Concerning the 2 guides we're preparing, we actually have almost finished the first draft of the VSME digital template, which is an Excel template which will enable user-friendly data entry. This was heavily requested in the field test as well as in the public consultation. And essentially, this Excel template will provide the auto calculation of totals. There will be, it will be very interactive in order to, let's say, making reporting as easy as possible for the undertaking. And in parallel, we have also been working on this VSME XBRL taxonomy, which enables the digitalization of the VSME disclosures. And it basically facilitates data exchange and import to databases with a structured, free and open format. And in contrast to ESRS at 1, which often requires a tagging of the human readable disclosures, the VSME XBRL taxonomy can be used as a template, making thus digital tagging obsolete, and thus acts as basically the invisible data point definition. What is key to mention here is that we have also been working on a converter that we will make public on our website, which will enable the transformation from the Excel template into an XBRL report automatically. So basically, the undertaking will fill the Excel template, press a button, and this will enable the conversion of the human readable inline XBRL VSME report. Moving on to the next slide, we have also been working on the mapping of SME reporting related initiatives, and we have issued a call from the 4th of February to 24th. We have received many responses, which we're currently analyzing at the moment, and the call was divided into two different, let's say, sub-calls, one for platforms and SME related initiatives, and the other related to tools. So for example, GHG calculation tools, geolocation, identification of water stress areas, etc. And in short, we have received 224 responses to the survey on the platforms, and of which 95 are in the operational phase. We had to revise the thresholds because we had put criteria in the call for interest, and thus to have a more statistically significant sample, we have slightly diminished the thresholds while keeping the same proportions. And we will actually follow up in the following weeks with the self-assessment in order to, let's say, to map the correspondence with the VSME standard. On the other hand, for the survey on tools, we have received 99 responses, and we will follow up also on this topic in the following weeks. It is important to mention that for the survey on platforms, that the self-assessment does not mean that EFRAG is certifying the VSME compliance or giving any forms of accreditation to such platforms. So now I give back the floor to Elisa or Chiara to continue and move to the Q&A session.
Thanks a lot, Lorenzo and Lorenzo Baldini and Mattias Mingazzini. It's good to have you, and thanks for all the work that you have done in the team with us. Okay, so a room full of people, and I guess also full of questions. So let's give the privilege to those that are here in Brussels to ask questions, and then I know from Elisa that we already have a few questions online. So who wants to break the ice? Go ahead, please.
Morning, Erwin de Bok, RSM. You talked about the reporting in an online reporting tool. You also talked about changing the content or into an XBRL content. The next step, does that mean that there will be a single electronic platform where the information will be uploaded, being possible to benchmark one SME to another within the same sector?
I don't think we can still, certainly not us, speak about a possible future European single access point. But we are working toward the direction of having at national level a consolidation of platforms and possibly one platform per big country or per each country, where the SME will include, will submit the information and all the possible current and potential counterparts can have access to those data. I think it's a bit premature to speculate on how integrated the various platforms will be between them, or whether in the future there will be a European platform. For the time being, I think the next step will be at the national level. We know that more than half of the member states have applied for the TSI funding, and it is highly likely that one of the projects will be exactly this. So to design an online platform which will allow to have this information, and that those projects will also explore what would be the business case for these platforms. Who will be paying to have access to this data? Because clearly you hint to the fact that having the possibility to benchmark means also having this data publicly available, no? That is, I think, still a bit tricky, because one of the things that we discussed in the standard setting was whether we envisage all the VSME data point to be publicly available or not, because some of them were perceived to be too sensitive to be published more largely or more publicly. So there is a sentence in our standard that says that the primary purpose is to facilitate the bilateral use of information, but on a voluntary basis, companies could also publish, and we expect that they publish the VSME information. But this is an important aspect where I think we will discuss more in the future. Yes.
Hello, Victoria Whitelaw. I took part of the VSME field test last year as a preparer with SME. I'm glad to see that you took our recommendation and you for the new version of the VSME. But I have one concern. In fact, and I think it's Ula was talking about the recognition of the tool as the VSME, and I think it's a very important concern, because comparing with other tools that already exist, like ECOVadis, for example, no, whereas there are verification of the information. With the VSME, there will be no assurance of the information. What's the value for the partners, for the financial partner, for the value chain partners? So I'm a bit worried about we are pushing SMEs to disclose, but what's the really value of that information?
So we made an analysis of how many data points in VSME may be prepared with information that is already available in-house, which would be based on, for example, the utility, the electricity invoice or the water consumption, etc. So something objective where there is a limited risk of making a mistake. And I don't have the information here. I don't know, the guys, if you can, but the majority of the data information can be traced back with very simple sources, and so the process, the mistakes are limited. However, there is the issue of the geolocalization of for the biodiversity and physical risk, and there is the issue of the GHG emissions. For those, effectively, the challenge is to make available these tools that we are now mapping, etc., and also with the TSI project, so that SMEs will have the possibility to have reliable data by using these official or certified or recommended tools. So imagine you have the national platform, which also is connected with the national GHG calculator. So that will give the user an assurance of the fact. I mean, it's not an assurance, of course, but would ensure that the information makes sense. So it's a journey that we are making toward that destination.
Yeah, but does the information the SMEs are going to disclose with the VSME will reflect any performance of their sustainability situation, and without double materiality in the process of collecting and this information, there will be no targets or even you know, and this decision that could follow. Do you understand what I mean?
I think so.
What's the interest at the end, you know, of the tool comparing to others?
Yeah. Luke is taking off. So,
if I may, is to deal with the trickle-down effect. That is the reason. Not to inform other stakeholders. No, the VSME is there only to deal with the trickle-down effect. So it's nothing, and this was even recognized by the Commission in the time, it's not a management tool, the VSME. It's a tool to give information to banks and also on assurance. Do you know what assurance cost? Even for financial disclosure, there is no audit for SMEs. An assurance costs 20,000 euro. Are you going to ask this from an SME? And there are other means. For example, how can you guarantee the correctness of data that an SME is going to give? Put it in the contract. If a large enterprise, but in its contract, oh, if we see that you have given false information, okay, you are out. You can deal with it in the contract. And it's also the legislation on publicity. A report, public report can be seen as publicity. And also there, if you give false information in publicity, you can sanction it. You do not need an audit or assurance. And as Chiara said, normally you have all the proof on the data according to invoices and so on.
But let's avoid maybe, because we need to involve also those online we using the microphone, etc. So Elisa wants to reply, and then maybe I can also come.
yes, thank you. And thank you. Also, Luke has been involved very much in the VSME design, so I see the passion still coming in. But no, I think it's important to, because I see also online where we have some questions on the. You cover two aspects. One is the reliability and, in a way, the verification. Okay, this is not in VSME, but there is a good reason for it. And the other one I sense is that you are linking the materiality to a sort of verification or, filter for the reliability of the information. Actually, what we got from the public consultation and the field test was rather the opposite. So was rather that result of the materiality analysis from an SME was very much unreliable. Not only, it was very costly for the SME, and this is also partly covered in the cost-benefit analysis. They also interviewed many companies, so that came out so on all front, the same strong message. So put a lot of effort in SME to do the materiality analysis, very costly, but the result not reliable for a financial partner or business partner, to the point that the financial partner would just have their preset materiality grid, by sector. So they would use their, let's say, own. And I think maybe Gianluca from the Banking Federation will confirm that. So their own pre-filled materiality analysis to just go and check the information if it is, for example, and to double check. So it costly 2 times basically to the SME and to the user who has to check. So this is the big reason why also we took out the materiality analysis and why choose a very simplified of applicability with the content on certain sector that pretty much reflects some of the very key hot issues and performance indicator we want to cover. So having said that, then the verification is really not something that came out. Obviously, it's a good to have, but really when you have the digital template with the verification codes, and you have again the responsibility, as also Luke emphasized, of the owner of the information on its reliability, I think we cover a lot of ground. And with that, we have answered a few questions also on the chat.
Yeah, no, one point though, undoubtedly the main role of VSME is to provide a unified questionnaire and help with the trickle down. But if you see the objectives, there is also an element of providing a simplified tool to start the sustainability journey. So it is also a first step to understand the performances of the company. Now, you were mentioning the targets. We have made all that was possible to have a proportionate tool that would cover all the aspects. So C2 and C3, the information in the comprehensive module, allow you also to have a description of the targets for climate, for example, and also to describe your policies, practices, actions in a semi-narrative way. And that's an area where the team is currently working also to develop guidance on what a very simplified transition plan for climate would look like for an SME. So that's a possibility that is given also in the standard. So you can comply in a minimal way, or you can do more. We want to see online if there are other questions, and then we ask again in the room.
So there is one that maybe it's a starting point of on the VSME. So good to remind. So how can we persuade platform managers and stakeholders to reduce their information requests, given that the VSME standard is limited data point compared to most of the questionnaire? And this is the very purpose of the VSME. So I don't know, Chiara, if you want to, and this was the core of our work, to reduce to a limited data set.
Yes, there is of course an element of animating the debate that we are. That's why we have this event and awareness raising initiatives. And hopefully VSME will become the standard. Of course, one of the aspects that came, I think, clear in the consultation was the fact that depending on the sector, you could also have the necessity to have maybe few additional data points depending on the sector in which you are, because undoubtedly we have prepared this tool VSME sector agnostic. So there could be additional data points that may be needed in certain sector. And one of the recommendations that some had for EFRAG during the consultation was to work on sector modules to be added to VSME, at least for the most impactful sectors. So that's still in the air. We haven't we haven't put that in practice, but depending on how the uptake of VSME goes, if that would be a message that is confirmed, I think it's something that we could further test.
And I think that connects also with the question we see on the screen. Will there be more guidance and in what manner sector-specific disclosure are mandatory? Because we have indeed paragraph 10 on the entity-specific, if you want. This is something that we as Chiara explained, we don't have for currently in the pipeline, but it's certainly something that is coming up also from the preliminary work we are doing on the sector guide, and in particular for the C2, and also to a certain extent for the C3. Which means the GHG reduction targets, no? And there is a hint, for example, to focus to, which we have already, by the way, in the disclosure on the high impact sectors, and maybe also in some of the example that we will provide. However, of course, because of, yeah, I think maybe Chiara, you want to elaborate on that, but because of the possible change in the approach to the sectors in EFRAG, that is something that is still, of course, not happening right now in the shortest term.
Yeah, I think it's a bit premature because, as you know, the omnibus has clearly indicated from the Commission side that EFRAG will not develop sector standards. So we are giving priority right now, apart the continuation of VSME, of course, to the ESRS revision. So if and when we were to receive a different message that more guide is needed at sector level, of course, that could also be beneficial for SMEs in a specific sector. There is a question on whether the basic module is also to be applied when one applies the comprehensive.
Yeah, so that is the entry level, the basic. So you always have to apply the basic module when you want to report on the comprehensive. And then, of course, if you are a micro undertaking, we say that the target can be just the basic. So, but clearly you need to have the first set of disclosure, the basic, done before you can apply the comprehensive module. And also because a lot of the disclosure in the comprehensive are actually expansion. If you notice from previous description, expansion of what we have already in the basic. This is why it's also called comprehensive, because it's more additional information basically to what you already report in the basic. There are a couple of other questions I think we want to touch on. One is the relation between VSME and LSME. What companies should use the VSME and which the LSME, especially with the omnibus proposal? I think here maybe, Chiara, I don't know if you want to say between VSME and LSME. For the moment, LSME is basically out of scope in the new omnibus proposal. So there is no, we have worked hard on the LSME, and it will be an important simplification, an important dimension also for the simplification work for set one, but there is no more currently in the omnibus proposal space for LSME. I don't know, Chiara, if you want to add.
No, I think it's as you say. So shall we see if there are other questions or comments here in the room? Yes.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Sonia Ruiz. I'm CEO from Noima, it's a consultancy firm based in Barcelona. So glad to be here. My question again is about the removal of the materiality principle, and especially if we take into consideration the latest recommendations of the European Commission regarding omnibus. So what happens with the undertakings from 251 to 1,000 employees that are already using double materiality as a very sound cornerstone for their sustainability strategy, not only for reporting, but also for integrating other departments in the analysis of financial materiality, integrating sustainability culture in the organizations, and also regarding the broader stakeholder consultation they do have. So I do believe there is an increasing successful culture around double materiality in undertakings that are around 500 employees, and this could be a little bit, under let's say, challenging at times now with the transformation. Latest note is that we've been working with small companies, 250 employees, 200 employees, and materiality is a challenge, yes, but with the right tools and the right education is also very useful at strategic level. Only this observation. Thank you.
Thank you also, because this gives me the opportunity to mention that a list of the disclosures that are likely to be material in a given sector would, according to what we hear, be extremely helpful for also with all the companies in a sector to approach materiality, right? So if we had in the future to work on sector guide, but again, it's premature to think so, but that could help. I need to say that VSME has not been tested for use. It's a bit like when you issue a drug, it has not been tested for use of companies with more than 200, and in particular for companies with more than 500 employees. So we know that standards need to reflect the complexities of the companies that use the standard itself. So we can only comment on what we expect the VSME to do for SMEs and not for the others. So the message that Elisa is giving you back from the consultation on the fact that materiality is not feasible was from micro companies and companies with less than 250. So probably if we had to test with companies with more than 500 and with their users, the answer would have been different. So it's important, the disclaimer that Elisa made at some point. EFRAG work in 2025 on the VSME ecosystem is for SMEs, is for the trickle down, is to provide highly simplified guidance. If we had to develop examples of a transition plan for companies with more than 500, we would have something more complex than what we are going to issue for the SMEs. This is very important.
And maybe, Chiara, that allows me also to say that there are a few questions online on this. So in particular, is certain the VSME will become a delegated act? Will there be changes to the VSME as a result of the omnibus? If yes, will changes affect the existing module? Related to the GFISMA presentation, would you expect any changes to VSME before it is launched, the recommendation? And then, will VSME standard be rewarded due to omnibus? So we have a series of questions on that, and I think the best answer we can give, first, I answer on behalf of the Commission, but on the fact that they will approve it, if they will change VSME before they launch it as recommendation, no. So they intend to adopt a recommendation, VSME as a recommendation as it is, with minor changes, also some factual, I would say, changes that have been collected in the meantime, but with minor changes. The time frame, I think Sven Gerner mentioned it, is before the summer, so June this year. So it's going to be rather a fast step one, which is an important step one for the market acceptance, as both the speaker from the Commission explained, and to guarantee the certainty exactly of the VSME as it is now. Will it be changed by the Omnibus before it's adopted as a delegated act? That I think Sven Genrer also answered, saying that this depend basically on two things. The negotiations going on at the level of Council and Parliament. So the two parameters are whether there will be changes in the very concept of the value chain cap that for the moment is proposed as being VSME, and whether there will be changes in the threshold of the voluntary, let's say, reporters, so the category outside the scope of the VSME, as for the moment is from 0 to 1,000 in this proposal. So it could be changes in the negotiation. So really the fact that VSME will change will pretty much depend on the negotiation. For the moment, the intention is to adopt in the two-step the recommendation and the delegated act based on VSME, but then there are too many political factors that we cannot certainly control. So this we covered many on that. There were other questions on the applicability. How do you determine if something is applicable? It is partly the person who asked the question also say, I understand this is connected to SME sector, but how to ensure SME doesn't leave out a topic that is material, for example, because the data is not favorable in their image. This is not the purpose of VSME. Again, we are not thinking in the logic of the materiality. We are guiding and we are replacing the materiality with the applicability to make sure that all the relevant data, and this was confirmed to us in the public consultation extensively and field test, are the ones needed by the counterpart. So this is really the data which are needed and the market needs. They are across the spectrum of ESG topic. For certain sectors, there are additional disclosure. For reporting probably on the narrative meaning the policies, forward-looking initiative and practices is what you're doing. So we expect that what you are already doing resonates with what your sector and your company judges to be the most relevant in terms of sustainability, and hence that guides really the disclosure. And the applicability is specified in each and every disclosure. So when you read the standard, there is like, if you are near biodiversity area, if you are already reporting under the pollution schemes, if you are exposed to climate risk, not all the companies are in a physical risk area exposed to I don't know, extreme weather catastrophe or raising water levels. So that there is a dimension of let's say filter basically for large part of the disclosure, for probably most of the disclosure in the standard. And that helps to calibrate basically the importance in a way. But certainly all those are important and judged important. That's what counts, no? From the business counterpart perspective. That has been tested and verified. So in a sense, should reassure you on that. So I think we have.
There's still time for a couple of questions.
Shall we take one online and one from? So on the online or the one on the platform?
No, just I saw in the Q&A. Yes, in this. No, I thought that you wanted to speak now. Otherwise, I thought you were raising your hand. That's okay. Let's see one online, and then we see again if there is someone in the room.
So online, the question is again on the platform. I mean, actually, yeah. There was one question, sorry, I forgot before on the value chain dimension and on the value chain data points. I don't know if you have that on the screen.
Yeah. Do you have an overview of which VSME?
Yes, of the VSME data scope 3 reporting and so on. Yes, we have a dimension, and also in the policy actions and forward-looking initiatives, there is the possibility of describing them in terms of value chain, but in case it involves. So there is a lot of flexibility, and the scope 3 as well, as I mentioned, is indicated and recommended for certain sector, but of course not imposed on all SME, which obviously is, if you are in service, wouldn't make any sense. There is also the workers in value chain, of course, the affected community. So there is a notion of value chain throughout, as we cover all the sustainability matters that are covered by the ESRS. But of course, with a more limited perimeter. And it's true that in the basic module, we highly focus on the own operation, also for the own workforce. As you see, the dimension is on workforce for the social indicators, but again, with the possibility to expand also beyond in certain disclosure, and particularly in the comprehensive, but also in particular in the comprehensive model. So and in the B2 for what concern the basics. So I think we covered this one, and we want to take a last one from the.
Yes. Anyone else here in the room with questions or comments, please?
Yes, my name is Christine Binia. I represent a new company that joined the community, a preparer. There are two things. I want to say thank you for the standard. I just presented it last week to our management in the United States. We have a global footprint, and surely the Europeans were very excited, but also our managers in the United States and Asia. So they think that this is not just of European relevance, but also for global relevance. I think we can take specifically the basic VSME as something that we can do across our entire organization. So we're really excited about this. I have a question about the verification process. It was also something that showed up in as an online question. So I agree fully on the assurance part. It can be very, very time intensive and very expensive. And also what happens sometimes is that when you make assurance mandatory, then there come all those consultancy firms and they say, can help you, and they make a lot of money with it, but they not always know what they're doing. But still I have a question for, no offense, but this is what I've experienced. If you are a company who really wants to do a good job with collecting high quality data, do you have a recommendation if there is a standard they could follow in-house, or a quality data standard like ISO 14001, for instance, for manage environmental data? Because there's almost like a standardization step before the VSME. Do you have a recommendation for those people?
We can think about it. I think it's a good feedback. Of course, also for us is an evolving process, right? So your feedback is really highly welcome, because that's something that we could consider in the next step.
Try to reference as well as much as possible in the guidance part as well of the standard to those existing standards, including the ISO, the EMAS or others, but and we're also undergoing a work, a mapping to indeed map the disclosure in the VSME with those standards. But yes, thanks for the positive feedback.
I take the chance of your reference to your footprint globally, so outside Europe, to say that while we speak in Europe, also outside Europe, there are similar processes that are taking place. So we know that there are other countries such as Malaysia or Mexico that are developing similar standards. And we are participating in active dialogue with OECD, who is also conducting a project to map all these international initiatives, and we have compared their result to our standard. That's not a surprise, because they have also been looking very closely to VSME, and there is a high level of alignment. So one of the interesting developments for the next steps is also to see how this standard compares with the OECD results of the research. There will be, I think, a public paper at some point at the end of their process. I don't know if you know more about the timing.
Yeah, no, but at least I know that we will have a joint event with them on the 11th of June, just to indeed reinforce this concept, because of course in this, let's say, worldwide alignment seems now a very big word, but let's put it, there is a tendency to converge, and or at least OECD is trying to do that. Of course, VSME plays an important role, and then each jurisdiction may have its own specificities, and actually we see it also at European level, because one thing, I'm surprised there is no answer, a question on that, but one thing we have to be clear is that VSME we cover, 80%. We tested at least between 80-90% of the data requests from the business partner, but there is always going to be let's say margin of additional requests, either because of the national context, national legislation specificity, or because of sectors, and that is something important to remind.
Yes, Luke, go ahead.
Sorry, I will be brief, but also a reply to what the colleague there asked on assurance and standards. First of all, I think we should not impose to a self-employed an ISO standard, because also this is not for free. As I said, there are already legal instruments to ensure the correctness of the data. And by the way, there are not that many in the VSME. The number of employees, everybody knows it. You have to report it already. The only problem I see is on the calculation of the GHG emissions in scope 1, 2, and 3. And there, I have to repeat it, we have asked that there the Commission should provide a standardized tool to calculate. Because Sven Gentner mentioned it, okay, the aim of the CSRD is also to limit the number of questionnaires. But if we do not have one standardized tool for an SME to calculate the emissions, it's possible that their clients or different banks are going to impose different tools to the SMEs, and that the SMEs will have to do different calculations according to the clients and the banks. So this will lead to not correct information, because there is no standardized tool at the moment, and a free tool, because this is important to have this tool. And by the way, in Belgium, the Belgian legislation, there is a prohibition for assurance, to ask assurance from SMEs. Thank you.
Don't. Well, if you want to involve all the others, you need to ask for the floor. Yeah.
Sorry, no, I want to point it out that I was not asking for assurance for SMEs. It's just, as different people ask, how do we guarantee the quality of the information? And if there's no a certain kind of framework, it's difficult. But even for GIG calculation, even if you give a tool, a common tool for everybody, it's so difficult to calculate scope 3. So
that's why I was saying it's crucial that we work toward these calculators. There is one last question, and then we need to move to the next session. We are 3 minutes late. Every bank is now in Austria working on its own ESG rating checklist for credit reasons. Will VSME standardize this, harmonize the EBA and ECB requirements? So we are meeting regularly with the ECB and EBA. EBA has recognized our standard and also mentioned it as a tool in the context of their guidelines recently. So that's what that's why we are actually doing all this work of persuasion to use the same approach. And I think that's the essence of what we are going to do. Okay, so thanks a lot for this lively debate. Let me now move to the next session on the agenda today, which is to allow for a bit of feedback from the preparers from one side, so representatives of SMEs, and also the users, so the representatives of the banking and large companies, but also from the auditors and the accountants who are supporting their SME clients and getting prepared for this challenge. So I give the floor to I don't know if to Sofia Zahari, who from SME United will bring us the perspectives of the SMEs. Sofia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chiara, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for the interesting debate we just had. I think we've heard some interesting information I would like to comment on a bit, maybe first to remind a bit the context and how SME United has been working on the VSME, because you mentioned that indeed we have our expert, Luc, who is in the room, who's been involved in the tech since the beginning to ensure that we would have a VSME that really fits the characteristic of SMEs, because indeed the VSME was born because of a trickle-down effect, because we had a legislation, which is, I think, a good example of a wrong approach, because if we are now in the process of drafting the VSME, if we are now in the process of negotiating the omnibus, is because we had a legislation that was based on what larger companies could do without taking into account the characteristic of SMEs and their place in supply chain. We cannot expect that exempting SMEs from the scope of such a legislation will mean that they won't have to report. We know that whatever large companies have to do, they will go back to their supply chain. So of course we needed such an instrument, and I think this is what the VSME is about, is a bit addressing the wrong things we had with the CSRD, with providing a step-by-step approach to entrepreneurs to be able to reply to the needs of their supply chain. So having this step-by-step modular approach is really important if we want to address this trickle-down effect. What we saw discussing the VSME with entrepreneurs is that the problem is you have to keep in mind that the big majority of SMEs are micro companies. So they have practices in place because it's good sense. I mean, there are most of them have 1, 2, 3 employees. They are very active in their local community. They don't have any reasons to lose the good relationship they have with their staff or to have a negative impact on the environment they operate on. But they don't have a written policy to take actions on that. They just take actions. So the first thing we have to keep in mind is that taking this step of reporting on policies first is really can be misleading for entrepreneurs, because they would feel that they don't have policies in place while they do, but they just have to do this translation. And I think this might be one of the concerns I would still have with the VSME, on the fact that if a company wants to start reporting on the basic or the comprehensive module, they would have to report on every data point. I think we should let them the possibility to also report on the data points they can report on, because otherwise there is no incentive in starting to use the standard. So of course we still have some proposals to simplify the tool, but I think, again, simplification must be done in a really smart way. We have to simplify as much as possible the data points, taking into account what banks, investors, and large companies will need, because there is no point in reducing the number of data points if we know that companies in scope of the CSRD would still send additional questionnaires to SMEs, but where we can really still simplify the tool is on the language used and the way the standard is built. This is what I always explained. I studied law. This is my day job to go through such documents. And if I find the VSME order guidance still complex, I have trouble picturing an entrepreneur at 9, 10 p.m. starting going through these documents and feeling like reporting on it, because it's can be still complex. On the content, you've mentioned some of the aspects like the GHG emissions, which of course we do need a standardized tool if we want companies to be able to report on. And I think we should not underestimate the complexity of reporting on some data points, although they will be needed, and this is not what I'm questioning, but you took the example of electricity bill, for example, which I agree with you. It can sound extremely easy. You just have to take your bill and you report the data you have on it. But taking the example of the self-employed working from home. So the electricity bill will be its private bill. So where do we draw the limits? So those kind of questions are questions that entrepreneurs still have in mind, which makes the reporting exercise still quite complex. And this is where the guidance is useful. But as I mentioned, the guidance still appear a bit heavy and complex to understand. And I think we should be working together on that if we want to ensure entrepreneurs can use it. Again, the VSME, the guidance is for EU SMEs. European SMEs will not all speak English. They will not be able to go through all the documents that the guidance documents suggest to go through, which can be super long, which are not always available in every EU language. So if we want to have a useful guidance document, we have to make it as practical as possible. So I think forum like this one and every outreach activities that EFRAG is doing is extremely important. We have to hear from the preparers, from the users, what we can do still to support them in this exercise. I was quite happy to hear that indeed the work on digital tools is ongoing. I would be curious to see how such an Excel template can be used, because Excel is not always the most user-friendly tool, but I think that goes in the right direction. I think it was also mentioned that we would have national platforms on which SMEs would be able to report. I think indeed we should still try to aim for a unique EU tool if we really want to simplify the exercise. But if that's out of reach, and if we should place the focus on national tools, we do have to ensure that data would be interoperable and would be transferable between one platform to the others, because this is also something that we hear. If we only have those national platforms and that SMEs are active in different countries, then it still makes the whole reporting exercise quite complex. So there are still some aspects to develop. As I mentioned, it's important to have such a community working together. And maybe one last point on some things that were mentioned, and I think Luc Hendricks also commented on that already, but this insurance question, I think it was really positive to see in the omnibus the limits that the Commission put on that, because, and maybe I will conclude there, this is a voluntary tool for SMEs. This is being developed to address the issue of legislation with a strong trickle-down effect. We should not impose additional expenses on SMEs. They will already have to spend lots of time on the VSME trying to understand what they have to do and to report. There is absolutely no reasons why they should be paying to ensure the quality of this data. I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Sophia. Many input you are bringing on the table, all relevant and all resonate a lot with the priorities of the work of the ecosystem and the forum. You mentioned the policies and the fact that maybe the entrepreneur is already doing many things, but still doesn't have a formalized policy in place. And in fact, that's an area on which we are investing. And so it will be precious to have the input of SME Unite and all the others involved in the forum and in the community on the forthcoming guidance that we are going to issue for targeted consultation summer in May, where we are trying to develop a list of concrete examples of actions that the SME can report back or consider putting in place as part of the practices. You also mentioned the need to consider more flexibility. We know that cherry picking is the enemy of relevance and comparability, and that's why we normally say you apply the basic module, you apply all of it for the data points that are applicable to you. You apply the basic plus the comprehensive, all of it with those that are applicable for you. But there is also another possibility, which is using the basic plus using whatever information from the comprehensive you feel ready to anticipate. And that's, I think, something that we added to take into consideration even this first intermediate step toward the comprehensive, but not the entire comprehensive. Maybe that is not so visible in the standard, but it's clearly something that is there and it's possible. Another issue that we lengthily discussed, and I think we will never finish discussing, is the language. No, what more can be done for the language, and in particular, you flag the guidance in our standard that is more complex reading it than the rest of the language, and requires more knowledge before approaching it. That is critical indeed. Now, if the temptation is to just take the guidance out of the standard, then we will aggravate the situation, because whatever stays in the standard is translated in the phase of recommendation of the commission, and so we will have it translated also if it's more complex than the rest of the language. Whatever is eliminated from the standard will not be translated, and there are chances that you and other SMEs will ask us to issue other guidance if that is not in the standard. So what are we doing to try to help there? The education. So we are planning to issue videos to explain better the content of the guidance itself, and we also have acquired a feature that allows our videos to be visible in all the European languages. So you see the video already in your language. So that's something that concretely we are doing. But we are very eager, of course, to understand what more can be done to simplify. I think I will stop there, because I want to, of course, leave space to all the other panelists to contribute. And let me now hand over, in fact, to the other counterpart, which are the users, the banks. And Gianluca Malca, welcome. He is a strategic sustainability expert of the European Banking Federation. He has accepted to bring us the banking perspective. And Gianluca also has been longly working for a long time with us on the matter. Thank you for being with us, Gianluca. Over to you.
Thank you, Chiara. Thank you for the invitation to begin with, for the excellent explanation today. There's a lot of point in contact with what Sophia said, but I will try to skip those points and go straight to where we at EBF feel comfortable in telling you the story of why we're here. So at the beginning of the ESRS work, there's three organizations, European Banking Federation, SME United, and EFA, European Federation of Accountants for SMEs. They prompted, we together prompted EFRAG to deal with the VSME because we realized the dangers of the trickle-down effects to begin with, but also we realized that the LSME could have been too similar than those for the large quoted. So we realized that this would have been an opportunity not to miss, to involve the highest number of subjects into the energy transition. So after a year of work, digging into different stakeholders' views, we were finally in the position to show the importance of our outcome. And we were finally able to work on the C8 documents. That was the inception file for what the VSME has now become. As I think it was Ulla Udina from DigiGrow said today, acceptance is paramount to make this project work. And this is what we, ABF, VSME United and EFA, have worked for. In saying that, I will sort of repeat something that has been already said by Chiara and Sophia before. We said and keep saying that the language and jargon must be understandable and not limited to experienced practitioners. For example, we insisted that it should not be simplified from the ESRS. And another thing that we asked to avoid the many references to other pieces of legislation. So we asked for one document only to facilitate, of course, the acceptance. And we see today that that was a long shot, but we feel that this was appropriate given now where the omnibus is going, bringing things to the very bone. So we believe that a ready-to-use, easy guidance, and I refer to what Sophia was saying before, easy guidance before the issuance that was named by Sven and Chiara before, is the true key to applicability. Because leaving the possible applicability on the shoulder of a micro company, and I'm referring to the if applicable definition. So leaving that on the shoulder of a micro company might produce sets of data that are not consistent to one another. And I think it was Luke saying that before. So in order to avoid that, please consider that words like climate or energy transition, GHG, biodiversity scopes are still very alien to the most. So it doesn't make any difference. I mean, if we just explain them in a long video. Now, just to make an anecdote, I've tried myself to follow the videos to pay the taxes in my own country, and I'm not always confident that I get it right just looking at the video. I still have to go to a consultant to do things properly. So our worry is that things are really understandable for the acceptance. And now, given the new wave of thoughts through which the VSME will serve as a basic level for reporting post-omnibus, we are also considering and the possible impasse of considering medium and micro in the same bucket. As we know, they're very differentiated from one another. One thing that we want to be clear with is that banks are not going after their clients to request impossible from them. And we clarified that from the beginning. Banks are only trying to cope with a risk management obligation. And this is why we encourage EFRAG also to have a dialogue with ECB and EBA in this very important phase. And I will stop it there for now and wait for questions if there's any. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Gianluca, also because you touch upon points that are complementary to what has been said, and you point to still the work that needs to be done to enhance acceptance. Yes, I think it's all it's all relevant. Let me now move to Valentina Alotti from Assonime. She's Senior Legal Policy Office, and she will bring us the perspective of the large preparers within European issuers as users of information. Valentina, over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to express European issuers' position. European issuers include national association and large listed companies from all sectors in 14 European countries. And we have a special working group, the Smaller Issuer Committee, that focuses on the need of small listed companies. All our companies are directly impacted by the CSRD regulation, and most of them will be interested by the application of VSME under the new scope of application defined in the proposed omnibus regulation. So on VSME and how we see the way forward, I would like to raise 4 main points, and most of them have already been addressed in the debate before. The first one is that VSME were adopted thinking to small unlisted companies. So they answered the need of information of these specific companies. The enlarging of the scope of voluntary reporting and the use of VSME then will request an assessment of if this standard will really address the information needs in case of larger listed companies. We think that this additional analysis should be bring very soon, and that the possible outcome should respect the structure of current VSME. So we like the modularity that should be kept, and we could think about a sort of an additional module in VSME which can address the need of larger companies. But here we should find the right balance with the value chain information cap, and I come to my second point. Since the VSME plays a crucial role in the value chain information cap, we must be sure that any additional information or module requested for biggest company will not impact the value chain information cap. And there is another point to be considered here, that to see how VSME will interact with the proposed rule on the value chain cap that can include additional sustainability information that is commonly shared between undertakings in the sector concerned. Here, what we would like to see is a sort of a guidance for sector, which allows to limit the flexible information that can be asked for to avoid the risk of a sort of a backdoor to asking any kind of information to smaller companies. The third point is the need of coordination of the VSME with other European legislation and international standards. Other European legislation, in particular, we think about the request to financial operators. So there must be a balance, and I rely on what was just said before me. The other point is the importance to have a strong alignment with other international initiatives in order to ensure full interoperability also at the level of voluntary reporting. So in this respect, we look forward the OECD report on that. The last point concerns the use of digital tools to facilitate the adoption of VSME. This point as well was already addressed. We think that simplifying the reporting process through a digital platforms that consolidates information, repopulates sector-relevant data, and automates calculations will increase efficiency and uptake by the market. Thank you for your attention, and I'm here for any question you may have. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Valentina. And again, you're adding a few complementary perspectives to this already rich debate. And you mentioned this new notion of information commonly shared in the sector, which has been introduced as an important qualifier to the value chain cap. So again, this resonates a lot with the input we got from the consultation on the possibility to have selected additional information at sector level. And it's something where we really look with attention to the negotiation of the legislative process, and also to the European Commission to understand what we can do to help in that direction. I would like then to move to Accountancy Europe, who has been also combining companies in their sustainability reporting journey. So I give the floor to Paul Gypsy, who is a senior director, to give us their perspectives.
Thank you, Chiara, and good afternoon to everybody here and online as well. One of my first projects when I started working for Accountancy Europe some 10 years ago was on SMP and SME sustainability reporting. It's fair to say at the time it didn't generate a great deal of interest, and over the last 5 years we have seen a massive increase in the calls on us to do work in this area, to speak to other people about the issue, especially as the trickle-down effects from particularly the CSRD became apparent. So, prior to this, though, we were already working in this arena, and we have available on our website for anyone that wishes to view it many documents relating to the actual sustainable transition for SMEs. So we're looking at this very much from a point of view of actually helping SMEs make a change to their business model. And this is something that I will reiterate more in what our steps going forward are. And in particular, we've already mentioned like risk and opportunity management for sustainability. And we think this is a key issue for SMEs to do this for the sustainability of their own business model. I can't imagine many businesses could be sold or passed down to a future generation if consideration hasn't taken place of that business's sustainability and how it impacts financial sustainability. Now, we've already heard quite a lot of the issues, and I agree wholeheartedly with all these. We support the VSME very much as a basis for sustainability reporting, even for micros, but we have to accept that SMEs do not have the resources to take on sustainability reporting as a major project. It simply isn't in the resources of most of these businesses, or indeed for many of their advisors at the moment. So we very much are looking at using the VSME as a basis for our accountant members of our members to actually sit down with SMEs and to look at how the VSME can be used to help those SMEs concentrate on those aspects of their business model that, I mean, I'm not going to use the word most material, but there I just did it, but the most applicable for their survival. And in many cases, this would probably become down to energy consumption, greenhouse gas consumption, that sort of thing. But actually concentrate on those key issues. Obviously, you have to deal with information requests from supply chain, and hopefully, this area will become standardized. We fully also support the OECD's work on this. I introduced the prototype VSME at their annual conference in 2023, and we also support, as far as possible, alignment with the VSME and the OECD's template when it eventually comes out. In respect of what we're looking at as an ongoing basis, I think we've already heard the key terms: technology, communication. In terms of technology, in my experience as an accountant for many years, things really become accepted when they become embedded into normal software packages and that sort of thing. So we've already discussed with software suppliers how they're integrating sustainability in, for instance, financial reporting information, but also what impact the VSME will have on their reporting structure. This was initially just for our members internally, but the discussions for this are also available on our website. We think this is key, but technology should also be leveraged in other ways. So, for instance, we have the VAT in the digital age, which has just been approved, that has e-invoicing as a mandatory requirement in 2020 for cross-border businesses. E-invoicing is a great opportunity for embedding sustainability information, particularly climate-related information, and even potentially a source for Scope 3 emissions for small businesses. So, you know, we would fully support this sort of information being embedded in e-invoices. It would then interlink with existing packages that businesses may use, or if you have countries such as Italy where e-invoicing is through a gateway, that could also facilitate the production of very simple, but particularly for greenhouse gas emissions, very simple emission statements from these from companies without the need for external consultants, for instance. Communication, well, we're doing the best with our members possible. We have regularly presented this to obviously internally, so that'll be to also people from large firms of accountants, but also to networks of medium-sized firms who predominantly have SME clients. I present the VSME, for instance, at the ministerial conference of the World Bank Centre for Financial Reporting Reform in Vienna a few weeks ago, always highlighting the usefulness of the VSME as a proportionate standard for most SMEs, but also the basis for reviewing the business model. And say, I think fundamentally this is the important point. We're not going to be able to persuade SMEs to embark on this journey, or many SMEs, unless they can see the benefit for them. And that comes from either better access to certain markets, not being taken out of other markets, but also in respect of elements of such as reducing energy consumption. So if you can actually put a real value on the sustainable transition, then you can persuade people that it's useful for them. So this is the area we'll be concentrating on, I think, in the next year or so. Thank you very much.
Thanks. You add a lot to this discussion, Paul. Certainly, all things that are relevant, and in particular, you touch on the last point you mentioned, which is the incentive. Being sure that we create the right incentive to help modify the business model and go in the right direction, but also having a better access to certain markets. So let me then move to the last panelist of this discussion, which is Salvador Marin, President of EFAA, also working with accountants, small accountants, next to their clients.
Thank you, Gara. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this event. It is a privilege to address you today on the pivotal role that the European Federation of Accountants and Auditors for SMEs has played since 2018, as Paul Gizzi had mentioned previously, in championing voluntary sustainability reporting standard for SMEs. I agree with my colleague about the incentives, about the technology. Of course, our unwavering commitment has been instrumental in equipping small and medium-sized practitioners, our members, and of course, our principal client are SMEs. If you multiply, for example, we represent 400,000 SMMPs, 30 SME clients, 20 of average. They have experience in millions of SMEs. In my case, I have experience with SMEs too. SMEs, don't forget that include S and N. Are different size, different objectives, are different concerns. We have dedicated our time to create necessary tools and knowledge to navigate the evolving landscape on sustainability reporting and assurance. I would also like to thank and recognize the great work done by EFRAG. Thank you for that. We live in times of big change. Competitiveness and growth are priorities, and good regulations will help SMEs not create problems. This is where the voluntary SMEs standard come in. Voluntary SMEs standard, of course, maybe isn't perfect, but it is possible. It's the best standard that we have. It's simple, in our opinion. It's a smart tool created specifically for SMEs. we have dedicated our time to this. Of course, we need guidance. We need easy guidance. We need maybe more simplification, but it's important to start. It's important to start with SMEs in this new culture. And we think that the voluntary emission standard is user-friendly to use for our SMEs. And for that, we strongly recommended that this standard be quickly adopted under a legal framework. For us, it's very important to hear the European Commission about the legal recognitions for voluntary emission. That was our requesting all time. Every time we need recognitions. Maybe delegate act should be the best option because for us should be the cut that the value chain could request to SMEs. If you are using the voluntary SMEs, it should be enough for the large company. This is our point. After this brief introduction, and according to your question that I have received by email, what have we done? First, strategic position and advocacy. If you remember, our organization was the first, or among the first, as Gianluca had mentioned, to introduce into the debate, into the agenda, the development of a voluntary sustainability reporting standard that we provide the necessary clarity for small and medium-sized enterprise. Together with SME United and our member organizations, we championed this initiative at a time when some voices were reluctant or didn't support it. Today we are pleased to observe a broad consensus on this issue. We firmly believe that if Europe was to achieve its sustainability goals, it could only those with SMEs on board. We need SMEs on board. It is clear. For that reason, we need to provide to them guidance and tools and clarity. For example, we have published a couple of position statements emphasizing the importance of creating voluntary sustainability reporting standard that meet the specific needs and capability of SMEs. This is our position. We have done other things, for example, guidance on sustainability reporting. If you see, for example, the debate about the sustainability reporting, this is our guidance, sustainability reporting, how SMMPs can build the capacity to support SMEs is one guide. Other guide that you can see in our web page about the discussion about the assurance, sustainability reporting assurance, how SMMPs can build the capacity to support SMEs in this state. I would like to say something about the assurance. If you review the financial report for SMEs is mandatory to assurance. The market decides at the end. Okay, you want to say it, you will do it. If not, we will see. Okay. And number three, other activity that we have done is engagement in the standard setting process. For example, we have participated in consultation of the voluntary sustainability reporting standard for non-listed SME, and we have dedicated a lot of time about the educational initiatives and events. For example, we have organized a lot of events about the sustainability offer new opportunities for SMEs, how SME can support for sustainability transition SME, or recently in February. We have celebrated a specific webinar together with SME United about the voluntary emission standard. This is our objective, to try to provide our members tools and recognition. If you review now our annual report, our publication, you can see that we have dedicated from 2018 more and more events, activity about sustainability report and relationship between SMA and SMMPs in this state. For example, you see 2018, you only will see three activity, and you review, for example, 2024, you will see 12 key activities about the voluntary emission standard. Before finishing, I would like to say two final comments. First final comment regarding the omnibus proposal. It is important to emphasize that we have always advocated for the voluntary sustainability reporting standard to be especially tailored to companies, SMA with up to 250 employees. Of course, SMEs had different size, no? However, we recognize, has seen in the editorial team, in the omnibus law, that there is growing interest in intending the use of this standard, or at least making it the basis to company with between 250 employees and 1,000 employees. I have heard the debates previously at my explanation. While these companies, 250 or 500 employees, are not SMEs in the traditional sense, you know very well. Maybe we could, I don't know, recommend it. We could study, including an additional model within the voluntary SMEs standard, clear and ambiguous and metric-based to help them to adopt this reported culture for this company. Or maybe we should dedicate time about this. As Elisa had mentioned, we don't know what the European Commission they will do it, no, about the recommendation, if they will introduce change or not. But it's clear that these companies are SMEs. For no reason we should dedicate time about it. But for me, it's vital that we allow the companies time to adopt this culture. We need data. This is the principal concern, the principal issue. Data. Only, in my opinion, always was the same. Only after 3 or 4 years of practical experience, when we had data to the application of this standard, we will have very good information to decide how continue in this journal. Okay, this is my views now. The second final comment is important too. The first comment was I told in the second final comment. I would like to say something. In addition to real life practical experience with SMEs, helping them develop sustainability report or collaborating on that with them, I have also dedicated my time to academia, not only of course with an excellent team, no. And for example, among others, in the last 3 years, we have worked on and published 5 articles on this topic with relevant sample of SMEs. This is the point, with relevant sample on SMEs in journal of 13 Impact, which validates their quality and relevance. I invite you to read them. I would like to highlight just the following general message. If you read this 5 articles, for example, 1, sustainability corporate social responsibility, non-financial reporting and company performance in Spanish SMEs. Number 2, sustainability information in European small and medium-sized enterprise, in European financial services in SME language in their sustainability reporting, or the role of the small and medium-sized practice in the sustainability transition of the SME, or European SMEs are no financial information in sustainability in last journal of the knowledge economy, environment, development, and sustainability. But what is the principal input about this? If you read this document, if you read this article, you will see that the following specific sample, real experience of SME, voluntary experience from SME, you will see that these SMEs, they are requesting tools, voluntary SMEs standard. They need standard. They are applying, for example, global reporting in the past. Now, you review this, you will see that the language is important, and Chiara has mentioned the language is important. And for the other side, they are requesting a specific tool. This is the finding. This is the finding. No, the IFA or the Salvador Marin. This is the real experience. For the reasons we are supporting to voluntary SMEs standard, because it's a good option to start in this state. Thank you so much for attending to me. We will continue in this state. We will continue to supporting to voluntary SMEs standard, and we will continue to supporting our SMEs around the
Thanks a lot. Also from your side, many points, interesting point. Fortunately, we ran out of time, and actually we are 2 minutes late, so there will be no time for a wrap up of the key messages that we have heard. But we will issue a report of this event, making sure that it also has a summary of the main points. Maybe just before closing, I take this occasion to remind you of the next few steps of our activities. First, on the digital template on the XBRL taxonomy timeline, our first draft of the digital template will be shared for targeted feedback with the forum and the Digital Reporting Consultative Forum members in April 2025. The Secretariat will conduct workshops in the month of April with the forum and also user organizations to validate the feedback. Then, following the EC endorsement, the Secretariat will make the final adjustments on this tool, so on the digital template and taxonomy, based on this input in the month of June. And the final version of the digital template with explanatory note and educational videos will be published by the end of June 2025. At the same time, we are working to issue additional support guide for the critical disclosures on policies and actions and targets, so C2, C3, and C7. We are currently, we will have consultations with the EFRAG tag and EFRAG board in May, targeted feedback mid-June, and the workshops will take place at the start of July. We are also conducting the mapping of the various onlines with the various templates, and we are going to issue videos on environmental, social, and governance disclosure on the next week. I just want also to say that in the forum we have tracked a very good dynamic with several initiatives that are taking place at European level and at national level. So we really we can say that there is momentum being created in this field with various educational and other types of event. So thanks a lot for those online and for you that are here. Thanks to the panelists. And see you at the next occasions. Thanks a lot.